Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Authentic and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. And we had 3 games in the NFC East this week. Our New York Giants just so happened to be the only team that lost. Seems like this is a reoccurring theme. Lost to the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving, 27-20. Philadelphia Eagles went to Baltimore and took care of those Ravens, man. The Beard definitely called that one right. They ended up beating the Ravens 24-19. And the Commanders absolutely destroyed the Tennessee Titans. Too much to too little. That's what the notes say here. 42-19. Oh, my God. I know the Beard cannot wait to talk about this one, man. Big shout out to the gang one time, man. Without further ado, let me bring in the best co-host in the country, the strong side to the left side duo, my brother from another mother. Big shout out to my Dukes one time. The Beard is in the building. What's cracking, fam?
We're back.
We're back. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I mean, listen, it felt like the longest week of football.
I told you it was going to be like that. That loss y'all had.
I mean, it was a long. That Dallas loss was bad, and then going into this game, you're just like, oh, if we lose this game, people are gonna start jumping off the side of the ship, you know. But I just like Thursday football, Thanksgiving 3 games, Friday, and then we had Sunday games, Sunday night, and then Monday night, and it was just like it's a lot of football, and it was spread out, and you know we're getting close here. This is the final push, and then going into a bye week this late in the season just feels like it's punishment. Like I don't quite understand what's going on, but it feels good. Pro Bowl voting has opened up. Jaden Daniels is leading all NFC quarterbacks in Pro Bowl votes to right now. So
interesting.
Very interesting. I'm not necessarily saying that should be the case. I don't even know if. I mean, I know it's a fan thing, but let's say it's not a fan thing. I don't know if I would put Jaden Daniels in the Pro Bowl right now in the NFC, right? Like,
there's a lot of good quarterback play in the NFC right now.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker's up there, but I would start with Jared Goff at the top of that list right now. Jared Goff just playing
Jalen Hurts.
Outstanding football. Hurts is playing good football. Combined, you know, from a rushing and throwing standpoint, I would say he's playing some good football. But I would consider Jaden Daniels above Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts is just he knows how to get into that end zone right now, man. He's just scoring a ton of points.
It's crazy. I stacked up on Jalen Hurts in drafts in fantasy football this year, and it's just like my phone, the notifications like Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown, and I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be rushing or passing at this point. Like,
right.
It's just I want to say he's got to be like top 3 in the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
Not
I think
even
he's
by
got
quarterbacks.
14 on the year. So he's probably up there. I know Derrick Henry breached 15 already, so he's probably second or third or something like that.
Yeah, and I had in the snow game in Buffalo, like it was that play. The NFL needs to explain that to me because I don't understand it. It's how does
what does your mind tell you that it should be? That it should be a receiving touchdown?
My mind tells me that it should be a rushing touchdown. That it should count as rushing yards.
Play.
It was on a passing play, but the player caught it and then lateraled it. Like it wasn't like a forward pass. So like for me, it's like a lateral. It's almost like a pitch, like a an option play to a certain extent. Like in my mind, I'm like that's a rushing touchdown for Josh Allen, and that's it. Like
wonder if it operates the same way on like a let's say somebody catches a pass and then they fumble it, but it's recovered by their own team and he runs it in for a touchdown. Would it still be a receiving touchdown? Can you even advance the ball now on a fumble?
I don't know
from the offense. Maybe they took that away. You know, I was playing against our boy Nate in that game and on fantasy, and I ended up winning by 0.1. It was like 130.6 to 130.7. And when I saw that, I was up by like 32 points to enter the night. So I'm like, I'm feeling pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
We go through about the first half. Josh Allen only has like single-digit points. I'm like, I'm good. And I turn around after that play, and I'm like, it's like an 18-point play right here. This dude is in the game. He was down by 6 points after that play, but just got very lucky and got the dub.
And a passing touchdown. The thing that's crazy to me is he has a receiving touchdown, right? And they gave him, I think they gave him 7 receiving yards, but 0 receptions.
Yeah.
How do you have a receiving touchdown with 0 receptions?
I think it makes some sense because the other guy caught the ball. The possession of the catch happened with the other guy, which was Amari Cooper in this case, I believe. And then he lateraled it back. So, I mean, it's either going to be a rushing touchdown and, I mean, Would you just do a rushing touchdown though?
That's what I would. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting, right?
I wouldn't consider it a passing.
But he threw the ball, and the ball went to the end zone.
But see, once that ball leaves the initial player's hands, it should restart the play. Like as far as statistics go.
Nah, I can't go for that.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen statistically happen, like in football. Like I don't think I've ever seen something like that before.
It was strange, but I thought it's probably the best outcome to make the stats like that. I thought it was the best way to go about it. Like, what else could you do? You give him a rushing. He threw the ball, so you got to give him a passing touchdown, right? He threw the ball forward, and his team scored a touchdown. You got to give him the passing one. So maybe you double it up and give him a rushing one, but I think the receiving is good, though. But nonetheless, a really good game. 2 weeks in a row now, we've gotten these big snow games, and that's that true weather football. Like that's that. Take you back to when you was a kid playing in the snow. Some of these dudes out there with no sleeves on, I don't know how they do it. I'm still the dude that bundles up when I just go to the grocery store. Even on a day like today, I was like, nah, I'm wearing the big coat, bro. I'm not about to go out here ill-prepared, but football season is definitely cranking right now. But you ready to get off into this first matchup?
Let's rock and roll, my friend.
All right, man. Big shout out to everybody that pulled up to the Giant Overreaction. We won't be as long-winded. I told y'all that was going to be a short show. It ended up being 2 hours. That's just how it goes over here at Authentic and the Beard, man. But let's get off into this first one, man. The Giants travel to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving. All right, Beard. It feels like this game was 3 weeks ago. I know you now are over the hump, got the dub. You forgot about that loss to the Dallas Cowboys. This game feels like it was literally 3 weeks ago. Cowboys came in favored by 4 points in this one, end up winning 27-20. The Giants have started 3 quarterbacks for the third time in 4 years. This is the second season in a row that the Giants have started a different quarterback in 3 consecutive games. That goes to tell you that there's just not a lot of consistency at the quarterback position. And the New York Giants have pretty much hit rock bottom, pick up the rock worms underneath. The Giants are somewhere right there next to the worms right there, sitting at 2-10 right now. Gave the Cowboys their first win at home this season. We're on a 7-game losing streak. It just feels like all the stuff that I was saying about y'all last year is happening to my New York Giants
1,000%.
It's bad, man. I hope we don't end up losing 11 of our last 12, but it's probably ended up looking something like that.
You might want to hope that that's the case.
Yeah, I do want my quarterback here. 8 straight losses to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have now won 15 of the last 16 matchups. And Joe Shane at the bye was talking about at the press conference that the New York Giants we're close. We're close. And I'm here to break news to Joe Shane. The New York Giants are not close, not at all. The Giants have now lost 10 or more games for the 9th time in 11 seasons. And it's, outside of this podcast, I'm not having fun anymore, Beard. It's been bad. All right. Like, the New York Giants are a straight up mess right now. We couldn't stop the run. We couldn't run the ball. We couldn't block. We can't stay healthy. Third down was just awful in this game. 13 penalties for 98 yards. What are we? Is this a Pee-wee football team with Coach Mike out there in the CYO? I don't know what's going on. We did score 20 points, though. So, I mean, that's a bit of an accomplishment. Just the third time for the New York Giants this season. We're on pace for a lot of bad things right now. We're on pace to be winless in the NFC East for the first time since joining the division permanently in 1970.
No.
Yup. We're on pace to finish the season with the worst record in franchise history. We're on pace to finish winless at home for the first time since 1974. That's a decade before you were even thought of. Mm-hmm. And we're on pace to finish the season with the fewest points scored in the NFL. That'll be the first time the New York Giants end up in last place since 1953. Defense was not good in this game. We've been hanging our hats on the defense throughout the year. The defense, they were absolutely terrible in this game. They gave up 130 yards on the Cowboys' first 2 possessions, 0 sacks on the day, 7 total pressures. You combine that with 4 total pressures last week. That's 11 total pressures in 2 whole games. And now we just got the news that Dexter Lawrence is now out for the season on season-ending IR. It's not a good look right now in New York. And I think for Drew Lock coming in as the starter, a few things went well for him, I thought. We did talk about this backstage a little bit about the turnovers and whatnot, but I did like that he was aggressive. I like that he pushed the ball down the field. At least he was trying to. You had those drops from Darius Slayton to end the first half. Two of them. One, he didn't get his feet in bounds. The other one, the ball's perfect. 40 yards down the field, he drops it. Drew Lock ended up being 21 of 32 for 178. No touchdowns, the 1 interception. He led the New York Giants in rushing. And listen, if Drew Lock is leading your team in rushing, that's a problem right there. He did have the 8-yard touchdown run The 20-yard run, which looked like a touchdown at first, they ended up checking the replay. He was just a little bit short. 2 for 2 in the red zone. Those are some good things, some good numbers for Drew Lock there. He found Theo Johnson, got him involved a bunch on a ton of broken plays in this game. And Theo Johnson was looking, pretty damn good. He was looking like Jeremy Shockey Timu light version, okay? 5 receptions for 54 yards. Like, this is what I want to see out of this kid. And the one thing I will say about Theo Johnson is he wasn't high on my radar, but slowly but surely he has become at least a factor in the offense. He also got put on season-ending IR as well. So your boy Greg Dulcich, you're up next, buddy.
Oh, and, that's right. We're going to get some Dolkmeister,
we'll probably get some. We'll probably get some. I don't know how soon it'll happen, but we'll probably get some. I'm not looking forward to it as much as you are. You sounded extremely excited.
We're going to be on the Dulcich radar, like he's on the sonar now.
That's if I don't tap out,
the
hit
Dulcich
the mat
meter.
And just tap out. Like, man, there was this one dude, man. He was making some pretty cool content for a few years there. What was his name? Like Academic, Authentic. Oh yeah, where'd that dude go, bro? Like, he hasn't been around. New York Giants been so terrible, but Drew Lock definitely had some bad going on in his game too. I mean, the offensive line didn't give him any help. He was sacked 6 times on the day. He fumbled on the opening drive of the second half. The interception on the screenplay. DeMarvion Overshown, man, we've been slowly but surely talking about him. We both kind of forgot about him last year with the torn ACL. He's been back and he's been a difference maker, and I felt like that pick 6 was really the difference in this game. I mean, it was a 1-score game. The Giants were chasing the 2-score lead pretty much throughout the whole entire second half, and the Cowboys' offense was not that great. That was the only touchdown of the first half that the Dallas Cowboys had. Overshown did have 6 tackles in the game, and really outside of that, it was just Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle had a career day as a pro. His first 100-yard game, 22 for 112 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. The Cowboys rushed for 122 as a team, which doesn't sound like that much, but for a team that's been struggling against the run this year or struggling to run the ball this year, that's a really good accomplishment for the Dallas Cowboys. 107 of the Cowboys' 122 rushing yards were after contact. So you got to get a running back some props here, Rico Dowdle in particular. He had a 20-yard run in the first half. That was the first 20-yard run by a Dallas Cowboys player all season long. So, they're finally getting that running game back going. This is the second year in a row we've written off the Dallas Cowboys, and they're hanging on by a thread here with 7 losses but 5 wins. And Malik Neighbors, had a pretty decent game here. He did complain about targets last week about not getting the ball in the first half. And I saw a comment on Diggy's all-22 breakdown to this game from somebody named Vincent D'Angelo or DeAngelis 2558. He said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I ain't never heard that term, and I really like that, because if Malik Neighbors would have just not said nothing about the not getting the targets, maybe he comes into this game and he's really not a factor in this game in the first half. From the opening drive, the New York Giants were getting him the ball. He got every passing target on that first drive from Drew Lock. He ended up finishing with just 8 receptions for 69 yards. He's 3rd in the league in targets, and he's still complaining about targets and still getting more targets. Is I guess that's what happens in New York. He hasn't scored a touchdown though since week 3. And as far as Malik Neighbors goes, I still think Joe Shane put a little bit too much pressure on this kid to start the year. I think it would have been nice to have another weapon there that you could not bank on developing or taking that leap, but a weapon that is truly reliable. And I think maybe they thought Darius Slayton could be that guy. But when you look at Wandale, you look at Hyatt, these guys are not really contributing the way that I think Joe Shane thought that they could. When he drafted these guys, he traded up to draft Jalen Hyatt in the 3rd round, Wandale Robinson, a 2nd-round pick. These guys combined, Wandale Hyatt and Slayton, all combined for 22 yards total. And that's just not going to get it done. And something else I saw kind of running around social media, is the last thing I'll talk about before I kick it over to you, is somebody brought up Wandale Robinson as a blocker in the run game and in the screen passing game. There were a couple of plays in this game where Malik Neighbors got the ball on a quick bubble screen, and they're looking for the other wide receivers to get out in front of the play and make blocks. And you got Wandale Robinson at 5-foot sprawls and 100 and whatever pounds trying to get out in front and be a blocker. And I think that that's something that Joe Shane and Brian Dable really overlooked when they were trying to build this core. You think about the smaller type of stature wide receivers that they had when they were in Buffalo. Guys like Cole Beasley. Who's the other guy that they brought over? What's my dude's name that was in Buffalo too, wore teens number? He was on the Giants roster for a quick second too this year. Special teams guy, Isaiah McKenzie. They like that kind of prototype wide receiver, but I think where they're forgetting is like, these guys are going to have to block out there. Yeah. And even in the short passing game that they like to rely on a lot. So I just think Wan'Dale Robinson's really, really not a scheme fit for what the Giants do, which is, at least right now, I know Brian Dable wants to open up this offense, but we're running out of time here, bro. Brian Dable's about to get fired. And we run this short passing attack all the time, and I just don't think Wan'Dale Robinson's really cut out for this. But the Dallas Cowboys were the better team. I don't even think they played that much better than us, but the DeMarvion Overshown play really, really did us in. And, bad teams, you got to play perfect to win those kind of games. And the Cowboys came out here and didn't play a really good game, but still got the W.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I mean, there was a little bit of hope there. The Drew Lock drive, that was, you got to think, okay, Drew Lock's out here. We are in it to win it. We got this nice drive. We got a lead. The first time the Giants have had a lead at any point in any game since October.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of hope there. The turnovers, though, were the most the dagger here. You have 14 points off of turnovers. You include the pick six, and then after the fumble, they score on that drive. So 14 points off of turnovers. You talked about not being able to get the run game going, and Drew Lock being your leading rusher. I mean, Tracy and Singletary, the longest runs that each one of them had was 7 yards. That was it, the longest one. They combined for 59 yards. And it's just not enough. You talked about the penalties. 4 of those 13 penalties resulted in Dallas first downs. So you're making things easier. And you talk just literally as you finish off, speaking your part on this game about how, and I talk about this with the Commanders. It's like, for the Commanders, it's about beating good teams, right? Like, they have to play perfect because they're not at that level yet. But when you're a bad team, in order to even be in a game, you can't afford to do things like that. The penalties, the turnovers, it's a killer. And I mean, the passing game, there's no, I know they were trying, and I think Drew Lock can throw the deep ball. I'm not worried about Drew Lock not being able to throw the deep ball, right? Drew Lock has an arm. 3.4 yards per pass for the New York Giants in this game. I want to go out on a limb and say 90% of the league was averaging more yards per a run this week than the Giants were per pass. So it's tough to win like that. And then the sacks, not only were there 6, like you said, but that's a loss of 47 yards on those 6 sacks.
Yeah.
You
look at critical moments, some third down sacks for Drew Lock. I went back and looked at the all-22 on Diggie's video, and just 3rd and 5, you're taking a sack, things that just can't happen.
Yeah, and those things too. If you look at a lot of the successful teams that have high sack numbers, or successful quarterbacks that have high sack numbers, the yardage loss is very minimal in games that they're winning and in games that they're performing in, even though they're getting sacked. I think Jane Daniels might have been sacked 2 times for 2 yards loss. It's a huge difference there.
He's always fighting forward. When you look at Sam Howell a year ago, the yards lost was ridiculous.
It was really, really bad. And then the third downs, 3 for 12. I thought the Cowboys were dedicated to the run game in this game. And I thought that was huge for them. I mean, Rush coming off of that huge game against the Commanders. Yes, they passed the ball 36 times in this game. It sounds like a lot, especially considering, but they ran an insane amount of plays. They still ran the ball 32 times in total, So, I mean, I think that's a good sign for Dallas that they, we talk about this so many times. Sometimes you might not be good at something, but if your opponent is really bad at what you're not good at, you at least have to try and be good at it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Cowboys did that with their running game in this situation. And, the touchdown drive in the first half, like I was talking about for the Giants, that was a 13-play, 70-yard drive.
The first touchdown?
Yeah, first touchdown
for the Giants. Yeah, the one
where
Drew Lock got close down to the goal line. Yeah,
13 plays, 70 yards.
Only 3 completions, I believe, too, on that drive.
After that drive, for the remainder of the first half, how many yards do you think the Giants had total?
Not many, because they only had 40 net passing yards. You talking about net, right?
Yeah, they had 27 total yards the rest of the first half after that drive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
So
they were very limited on opportunities early in the game. They only had 1 drive in the first quarter, and I think they had 3 in the second half where they're just all stalling out.
Yeah, so it's a tough road ahead for the New York Giants. And, I stick by my guns and what I'm saying. It's just – and I feel like you're going to get more and more people starting to realize that, when we sit up here and tell you guys that you're not a quarterback away and that nobody's ever really a quarterback away. I think that people are starting to realize that now because and then it's like they're always looking for one person to blame. Like, oh,
Yeah,
it's
I have noticed
stable.
that about our fan base. Like they want somebody to point the finger at, which is really weird. It's a
Yeah.
really weird dynamic in our fan base. I do think though that Drew Lock, 24 hours to really get his mind right to get ready for this game. And to me, it's an indictment on the coaching staff because one, they're either tanking. Some people don't believe that there's a possibility that they're purposely tanking. And I don't rule out anything. You know me. I'm not going to say 100%, man, easily and all this stupid shit these young people say, right? Because you never know, to be honest. But I do think that if Drew Lock had a little bit more time to prepare, he looked like not like a shell shock quarterback, but he looked like a guy that was like the jitters were there, nervous a little bit, trying to get the ball out of his hands very quickly. The timing with the wide receiver is not really quite there. You saw a couple of throws, Malik Neighbors on that quick slant in particular, where he's wide open and Drew Lock puts the ball on his back shoulder high and away. And Malik should catch the ball, but he ends up having to get tipped up and, come off his hands and whatnot. Malik had a couple of drops in this game as well. Darius Slayton doing him no favors. I thought that Hyatt showed the ability to be able to run a few short concepts, and he succeeded on a few, but I really want to see Drew Lock with some, the right amount of time to prepare. Because I do think that if you bring out a Drew Lock out there that, let's say, has the same confidence of a Daniel Jones as far as not turning the ball over, because I didn't look at Daniel Jones the last couple of years as a turnover machine.
Yeah.
It was like you're waiting for it to happen, but I didn't look at him as a turnover machine. And if Drew Lock could get some of that under his belt with the combination of being able to throw the ball down the field and, these wide receivers maybe stepping up and possibly making some plays, I think the Giants offense could maybe catch the spark that Brian Dable was talking about when he went to Tommy DeVito. But I think it's clear that Drew Lock is the better quarterback of the guys remaining on the roster, at least.
There's no way that I know I'm not a Drew Lock truther, right? But I've been a Drew Lock believer. I think Drew Lock can play in the league. Maybe not a starter. I think he could probably be a starter on a few teams, right? But I think
I'd still say he's a backup guy.
Yeah, high tier top.
If you don't have the right guys up front, he's a liability.
He's a guy that needs the perfect situation.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
He was a little bit squeaky on some of these runs where I was like, dude's, he has better eyes than Daniel Jones. He's not as great of an athlete, I'll say. Neither of them to me are really athletes, but I will say that Daniel Jones, when he get to taking off running, he's a faster player than Drew Lock is. But Drew Lock kind of sees the leverage up front a little bit faster than both the other quarterbacks, I feel like. He kind of can see things collapsing, but the inability athletically to kind of get out of some of these situations you saw. But other times he was maneuvering a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see who plays quarterback for you guys next week.
Yeah, moving forward, right? Yeah, like if DeVito is healthy, who are they going to go to? And at this point, it don't matter. I mean, really, they could go out here and lose all these games, and I'm sure that would be to the delight of most of the Giants fans around the country.
You guys are sitting, number 3 right now?
Yeah, sitting at number 3 right now. And ESPN has odds that we'll get the number 1 pick, but the Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars are ahead of us right now.
Oh, the Raiders lost a heartbreaker.
Yeah. It's been tough, man. Those are the only teams that are eliminated to right now officially is Raiders, Jaguars, Giants, and I want to say there was one more squad on that list in the AFC. Maybe it was the Jets. Maybe the Jets just got eliminated. It might have been the Jets. Can't remember. But in the NFC, it's just the New York Giants. Carolina Panthers not mathematically eliminated because of the division.
Listen, they've been playing pretty damn good.
They
considering,
have.
And shout out Bryce Young, because I think Bryce Young is that's Bryce Young. So I know we're getting a little sidetracked. I'll leave it on this. Bryce Young. What happened to Bryce Young and what he's doing right now is 1,000% what you want to see in a young quarterback. A guy who's one of those top picks, doesn't really perform, gets completely embarrassed and thrown to the bench, and just it's a horrible thing. And he takes it all in, and when it's his time to come back in, he comes back in, and he looks like he's learned, and it doesn't bother him. It doesn't appear to bother him mentally at all. He seems to have all those sort of tools that you look for mentally in a young quarterback, in any quarterback. Because you've seen there's so many quarterbacks you've seen over time and in this league that are just fragile mentally. Yeah. And you cannot be a top-tier quarterback, a successful quarterback in this league if you are not mentally strong. And I just, just quick little shout-out to Bryce Young. I think what he's doing is good stuff.
Yeah, and the coaching staff handled it well. Gave him another opportunity within the same season. They benched him. So I give them their props in that department as well. Same thing with the Colts, man. Sometimes you just got to go to the other guy, sit the young quarterback on the bench, which these guys really should have had the luxury to be able to do that when they first started their careers anyway. And they just didn't get that. These guys were highly talented players that they just thrust out there and, from day one made these guys starters in the league. And it has backfired. Like Anthony Richardson, man, I think it's 2 or 3 games over 50% completion percentage in his entire career. You got to get those things cleaned up.
Yeah, I don't think he got there this week either, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think he did. Yeah, but let's keep it moving. Definitely want to talk about this Titans matchup with the Commanders here, man. Your Commanders definitely handled business. Let's get off into this next matchup. Tennessee Titans, man. Talk about, I saw somebody in the chat saying that the Commanders were frauds. I don't think the Commanders are frauds because they know who they are. But just because you think that there's somebody else doesn't make them frauds, right? I think the Commanders know they're committed to the rebuild right now. They're sitting at 8-5 right now in a surprising rebuild season. They were favored by 5.5 in this game, ended up winning by 500.5, 42-19. The Titans came into Washington high off that upset versus the Texans just a week ago, and the Titans had won the 2 previous matchups versus the Washington Commanders as well. This is the Commanders' first win versus Tennessee in a decade. Y'all hadn't beat them since 2014. The Commanders snapped their 3-game losing streak against 3 very worthy opponents, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Dallas Cowboys. And this is what we were worried about when the Commanders went and played superior competition, how they would show up. And I thought they played pretty well in those games, minus a couple spots in those games. But y'all, definitely competed in those. But get back on track here against the Titans. And with the loss, this will be the 3rd season now in a row for the Titans under 500. That's going to be really tough. This game was over. Literally, as soon as we turned it on, this game was over in the first quarter. The Commanders scored 28 unanswered points to start the game. The B-Rob 40-yard touchdown, Jaden Daniels with the rushing touchdown. Terry McLaurin had 2 touchdowns all in the first half. McLaurin had just 21 yards total in the first half of the last 3 games. And maybe I'm wrong about the squeaky wheel gets the grease or gets the oil, right? Because Terry McLaurin ain't out here talking about, hey, coach, I need more targets. I need more targets. Get me involved in the game early, okay? You can't throw me the ball and we're down 30-0. I didn't hear Terry McLaurin saying that, right?
Never.
Right? He'll never say that, right? But he had just 21 total yards in the first half of the last 3 games, and they really got him involved in this game with the 2 touchdowns early. The Titans started off the game about as bad as you could possibly start off a game. It reminded me of a couple of New York Giants games, kind of like the Cleveland Browns game where we fumbled the opening kickoff, let them score a touchdown. It was kind of like that, but a little bit worse, to be honest. The Titans started off the game, punt, fumble, punt. They had the Tony Pollard fumble after punting the ball 2 times. The Commanders ended up scoring, and then when they went to kick it off, the Titans fumbled the kickoff. It don't get no worse than that. No. And the Titans just woke up, I thought, on the wrong side of the bed on Sunday afternoon for this game. The Titans had 12 penalties for 93 yards. The Titans had more yards and penalties than on offense for most of the first half of this game. They got doubled in time of possession by the Washington Commanders. It felt like the Titans were down 28-0 before Will Levis even got settled in, and he did not have a really good day. You're talking about guys with the, kind of a poor completion percentage. He was 18 of 37 for 210. The Eli-like scramble and the pass to Calvin Ridley is when I felt like he started to get kind of it's getting settled in and whatnot. Then he had the pretty touchdown pass to Nick Westbrook-Akine, who has now 7 touchdowns in the past 8 games. The dude's been balling out in very minimal receptions. He's a big play type of guy. He had 2 touchdowns in this game, just 3 receptions, 61 yards on 8 targets. So we got to get that catch percentage up just a little bit higher. I do think that Frankie Louvu played a big role in this game in disrupting what the Titans wanted to do offensively by just living in the backfield with Will Levis. He led the Commanders with 4 pressures on the day, and he got his 8th sack of the season on Sunday. A great free agent signing by the Washington Commanders. The Commanders forced 21 pressures, 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and 13 quarterback hurries on Will Levis in this game. Titans couldn't run the ball, and I thought that was the big difference in this one. The Commanders ran the ball extremely well. The Titans couldn't get the running game going, obviously because they were down on the scoreboard by so many points so early. Tony Pollard, who I had on my fantasy team here, had 8 rushes for 35 yards. And Tajay Spears, who has dealt with a bunch of injuries and whatnot, but just 1 carry for 3 yards in this game. Titans end up rushing for just 35 yards as a team. And that's just not going to get it, definitely not going to get it done. But we talked about the number 1 passing defense with the Tennessee Titans and about how those numbers are a little bit skewed. Shout out to Mina Kimes. I've been talking about this statistic that they're giving teams the best starting field position of any team in the NFL by a mile. They were allowing just 171.8 passing yards per game. And I think this game really showed you how these numbers, when you just look at the box score, when you just look at the statistics about who's allowing the fewest passing yards, how the Tennessee Titans are frauds. Let's call them what they really are, okay? Jaden Daniels was 25 of 30 for 206, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, pressured just 12 times on the day. And the Titans had as many penalties on the day as they had as many pressures on Jaden Daniels. Not going to get it done. Titans they're just so bad right now, if you ask me. I pray to God and cross my fingers that they can be better than the New York Giants so we get the better pick. But the way that they just allowed you guys to run the ball all up and down the field on them, Brian Robinson came back from that sprained ankle, and you talked about this. He was in practice. It was a surprise to you that he wasn't on the injury report at all, and I think it was no surprise when we watched this game. He was definitely 100%, 16 rushes for 103 yards, 1 touchdown, 6.4 yards per carry. Chris Rodriguez finished things off in the second half with 94 yards on 13 carries. He had a touchdown. He was averaging 7.2 yards per carry. And the Commanders rushed for 267 yards as a team.
Say it again.
267 whole damn yards.
How many times did they run the ball?
Team. You tell me. I'm going to say 40?
45.
45 times. Ridiculous. Titans were allowing 120.1 rushing yards per game. I would call that a roadmap victory.
Oh, my God. The 1 week where I don't get to do a roadmap, I mean.
Oh, yeah, there was no roadmap. But
it felt like a roadmap victory, though, because all the things I normally talk about, they did. So.
Yeah, most definitely. I know you would have talked about the rushing attempts, the rushing yards, holding the opposing team to a certain amount of rushing yards and rushing attempts. But what were your thoughts? I mean, I know you were watching this game smiling ear to ear with the way that you guys dominated in the first quarter. And, these are one of those games where you, hey, my dog, hey.
Listen, I had my niece and my sister were over here for the game. And then Josie and my wife, Josie, and my sister and niece, they all went to the movies. But Layla was sitting on the couch. She was zoned in watching the Commanders. Okay. She was loving every minute of it. So I mean, it was a game that we needed, and to have a game like that where it felt just like every other game that we've won outside of the Chicago game. Mm-hmm. As far as
in the New York game.
Yeah, the New York game.
First meeting.
Yeah, firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Putting up the points, the running the ball, defense looking good. I mean, Jaden Daniels is just. It's weird because it's not like he's doing it. What he does is so interesting because, like, normally you look at some of these, rookies, right? And it's like, it's not necessarily the big splash, right? Like, you don't really get that feeling, but, like, the things that he does are just nobody's ever done before, which is what's super interesting. And there's been that so many times this year. You've heard about it, like the first rookie to do this, first rookie to do that. Mm-hmm. So now he's the first rookie quarterback ever to throw 2 touchdowns and rush for 1 touchdown in back-to-back games. He's the first quarterback ever to have 80% completion percentage, throw 3 touchdowns, and rush for a touchdown in a game. He's the first rookie quarterback to ever have 3 games in a season with an 80% completion percentage. And we still have, and I think they did a good job. All these things I've been asking them to do over these last couple of losses, speeding up the pace of play, more quick game stuff, things to kind of like get the rhythm going. Obviously, running the ball, the zone read passing that they were doing in this game was really interesting. Like Cliff seemed to be back in his bag a little bit more. There was a little bit more design and big shout out to De'Ami Brown. Unless you watch the games, you don't really know about what De'Ami Brown is. But over the course of the last, I'd say 5 to 6 games, right? Every time he gets the ball, it is like he is being shot out of a cannon.
Yeah,
he is. And early in his career, you looked at De'Ami Brown as a guy that's just kind of like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like he's a guy that's going to run the deep ball sort of patterns, you know what I'm saying? But they've been really utilizing him in different ways as of late. A lot of bubble screen stuff. And he's just shooting out the cannon. He made a couple of really big plays in this game.
Have they ever experienced or experimented with using him in special teams? I feel like he was returning kicks or something ever. No? Because the way that he catches the ball and goes, it reminds me a bit, not quite as dynamic and explosive as Kevontae Turpin, but in that lane of like, I'm a punt returner type of playmaker, you know?
Yeah, they've never really utilized him at all in special teams, but that's an interesting point for sure. I think he's going to start. They're going to try and implement him a little bit more. You know, I'm not saying he's going to jump into wide receiver number 2, although Noah Brown did get banged up in this game, so it'll be interesting to see it. You know how the bye week treats
almost
him.
Almost like y'all
don't
have a wide receiver 2.
We don't.
One game is Zacchaeus, one game is Brown, one game it's the other Brown. It's been interesting.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure.
McCaffrey, can't forget about McCaffrey.
Yeah, he had a big catch in this game, and if you guys remember on Tuesday, I talked about one of the biggest differences between the Commanders before the losing streak and the Commanders, during the losing streak was the third downs. And it wasn't necessarily the third down conversions, although it was, but it was more so about what they were failing to do on first and second down. In this game, they had 12 third downs of 3rd and 3 or less. Like that is, and it's crazy because I literally spent like 15 minutes on Tuesday's show talking about, like, I sat there and calculated all the third downs for Washington and like got the average and down in distance and everything. And
it was like 7 yards on average or more on third downs, which we're talking about.
And so to have 12 third downs a week later of 3 or less to go, like, you cannot get any better than that. And what's even better about that being better is that they converted 10 of those 12 3rd and 3s or less.
What did they end up on the day?
For third downs on the day, they ended up. I have it on here somewhere. It's
I might be able to get it
9 of 14.
9 of 14. Yeah,
so they converted the 9 of 12, but one of them that they didn't convert, they converted the 4th down. So just to be able to kind of maneuver, and your offense is so much more open once you're able to do that. So I thought that was a great point of emphasis that they addressed. Obviously, 5 of 7 in the red zone. They've been so much better in the red zone as of late, even through the losing streak.
Yeah,
that's kind of something that you want to see things improve, even though you're losing, right? Because this is a rebuilding year. So you want to see things kind of improving as you're going throughout the year with your young players, and to kind of see, like, even though the losing was happening, that things like the red zone that they needed to get better at were improving. And to see that obviously come here, 5 of 7 in the red zone. The turnover battle they won 2-1. That was one of the bad parts of the game. Jaden Daniels was high on that throw to Ertz, and it went off of his fingers, and it was an interception.
Had the fumble that he got back to, though. But
yeah, the penalties, again, were a little worrisome. 7 penalties for 65 yards. The defense gave up a couple of big plays. Got a little dicey there when it was 28-13. I think a lot of people were kind of like,
for a
here
second.
we go. Here we go. And then obviously the 2 missed field goals were brutal too. And I just want to say, this is why y'all got to be really careful about jumping to conclusions and always trying to have hot takes and be the first person to say the craziest thing on Twitter, right? Because I was going back and forth with people on Twitter because I hate hypotheticals, right? I don't mind hypotheticals in a hypothetical situation.
I don't like hypotheticals that try to prove a real situation to be wrong.
People were like, if Zane Gonzalez was kicking and Seibert wasn't kicking in the Dallas game, we would have won that game, is what people were saying, right?
I mean, come on, man.
And I'm like, you can't say that, right? But and to just further prove my point, you guys automatically thought you were going to win a game if you had Zane Gonzalez goes out here and misses 2 field goals in this game. And then y'all was telling me, though, if he was kicking the game before, that we would have won the game. So, just a little side note there, okay? Once again, and I talked about the Yami Brown, the Chris Rodriguez, McNichols, 13 for 94, McNichols 6 for 32, the 45 carries for 267, 5.9 yards a pop. That is the football that I love. The damn time of possession.
Yeah, doubled them up. It's crazy.
minutes and 13 seconds to 19 minutes and 47 seconds.
And that's more impressive that you run a hurry-up style offense.
Yes.
So you not only are you sustaining drives, but I mean, I know you guys get up to the line and do like to milk the clock down a little bit, which I heard somebody talking about this. Well, they do that so that Cliff Kingsbury can be in Jaden Daniels' ear while he's at the line seeing everything that's happening in front of him, which is genius, but not really genius. Like, why aren't more teams doing that? You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of things that you ask about that. Like, why aren't other teams doing a lot of these things? Another thing that we talked about on Tuesday in the Dallas recap, I introduced a new beard stat. The possible points off of opportunity algorithm, the beardarithm, right? We had 14 points off of turnovers. In opportunity points in the beard algorithm, they were 4 for 6. And the only 2 that they didn't convert were the 2 missed field goals.
Yeah, and these are situations where the other team doesn't score. So whether you got the ball punted to you or you got it off a turnover.
Yep, that you capitalize on those. So of those 6 opportunities in this game, they scored 4 times. And the only 2 that they didn't were the 2 missed field goals. So that's like – those are the things that, especially with Washington, it's so important for them because of the way that this team is structured. They're not the best defensively, although, Frankie Louvu, thank God we got him on a couple of years on that contract. We got him in an offseason.
He's balling.
He has been phenomenal. I love Bobby Wagner, obviously. Bobby Wagner to me is like, he's a London Fletcher,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like and I think they actually just tied he just tied London Fletcher for the most consecutive 100 tackle seasons in the NFL history. Because they've only been calculating statistically tackles since 2000. Did you know that?
Yeah, like when I was looking at some statistics, I saw like 03, from 03 I couldn't get the statistics before that. But the sacks they've been calculating sacks since like 1980 something.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's really weird. But he's
Lazy.
had 100 tackles, I think, for 13 straight years now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just one of those guys that he's not flashy, but, man, he does everything. And him and Frankie Louvu, that upgrade, I remember so many times talking about the linebacker position last year. And just the upgrade at linebacker has been fantastic. And, they played a good game defensively. I thought that Tennessee looked like they were going to be able to run the ball a few times, and I feel they couldn't get themselves to get back to running the ball. Like to me, if you're down 21-0, right, in the first quarter, that is, you do not need to abandon the run right there. You don't.
I don't know. It becomes easy to do so because you're starting to play against that clock now. You're like, I got to score points fast. You can't be just pacing it out. But, I mean, I wouldn't say abandon the run, but they were down 28-0 at the end of the first quarter.
God, you mean
you're cooked. Don't make the mistakes because you're cooked at that point. 28-0, man, game's over. I don't care. Like, unless you the Patriots going up against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl or something like that, you're not coming back from that kind of a deficit.
Yeah, and like I said, the Titans, they weren't a bad team defensively. They
were terrible.
In this game, yes.
They were terrible. But the field position that you got, like when you look at the first 2 touchdowns, you guys are like starting inside the 20-yard line. I'm like, God, this is just a layup for the Commanders here.
Yeah, so they did what they needed to do, and I was impressed with them. Not necessarily about the opponent or the final score, but I was just impressed with the way they did things. I thought that this is the type of game that you need to play, no matter who your opponent is. You have to play this type of game. And I thought,
for me, it was the score, because if you'd have came in here and backpedaled into a victory like 18-15 or something like that, we'd be like a little bit more worried. I think that the Washington Commanders were a team that when they started to play the better competition here over the past 3 weeks during that 3-game losing streak there, you start to get worried because you're like, is this offense really what we thought it was through the first however many games of the season? Good to see them get back in that same lane, scoring a lot of points, but not necessarily having to light up the box score. Like Jaden Daniels, just over 200 passing yards, but doing it in all facets of the game. And you talked about that. Them little nuances that he has in his game, the third down, the ability to be able to convert with his legs, buy extra time to make throws down the field, to be able to get his wide receivers involved in the game plan. Those are little things that if you don't have those in your game, then you better have some of the fundamentals in your game. And I'm loving seeing these two rookie quarterbacks playing this year with Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix doing it the two different ways that you can do it from the quarterback position. Bo Nix doing it a little bit more by being precise, concise, very efficient, short type of game, open it up when he has to. Jaden Daniels doing the things that modern quarterbacks do in 2024. So it's good to see both of them doing that.
Did you see the arm angle slow motion on the touchdown slant to Terry McLaurin?
Nah, I don't think I did. I didn't see the arm angle. Which one? The one that was a 3-yard, the one that was right on the goal line? The short throw?
One, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's accurate, man. He's not missing throws, man. Like when you see some of these backup quarterbacks come in and the placement is here instead of here, Jaden Daniels doesn't miss throws like that.
Yeah, and the 80% completion percentage, I mean, on 30 passes,
Yeah, I chalked that up to Cliff Kingsbury's offense, man.
And I love that. I love that.
And like a lot of people get confused with the yards per attempt, right? Like it's not that important. It really isn't. You look at the way that Patrick Mahomes has been dominating the past 2 seasons. People are playing him too high. So he's been at the bottom of the league as far as yards per attempt. It's about finding ways to be creative and be efficient while throwing the ball short and still being able to make big plays. Everybody thinks about explosive plays as throwing the ball down the field, but it necessarily doesn't have to always be that.
Yeah, and big shout out to everybody in the chat. I see Gregory. the name and the logo are not coming back next year. They're never coming back. Those are just fabricated rumors. And I personally would love, Ben, if Washington came back to RFK. I mean, the stadium site's already there. It's there's a metro station right there. That's walking distance to the stadium. I mean, like, it's just, that would be the perfect situation. Like, literally, I'm like 10 minutes from RFK. Like,
you're like 10 minutes from Northwest, too, though.
I'm literally right in the middle of the two stadiums. So, like, it would make complete sense to me to put it at RFK. If you put it at the Harbor, it's a whole extra level of like just construction and traffic.
I like the Harbor though, off the strength of you put it
Harbor
right in the middle of the city. Just imagine how traffic would be on football Sundays in the middle of the city. Because RFK, the stadium would have to be obviously destroyed, rebuilt to hold a ton of people like the stadium holds now, which I think it's about 80,000 people. The traffic would get ridiculous. I mean, that traffic takes up on our way down 495 to 95 when we're going to the game sometimes, if it's a big game. But for me, the Harbor would be cool. They got a lot of other stuff out there, a lot of big venues as far as music venues go. The Anthem. What's the other one?
Well, that's the Wharf.
Oh, that's the Wharf. That's down by that waterfront. That's where I would like to see it at.
Yeah, they're talking about the National Harbor in Maryland where the MGM is.
That's a little too out the way. I would rather see it down on the waterfront.
Yeah, that would be dope too. I mean, if you had it on the water, either way, it would be kind of dope.
Think of it's the Anthem and there's another venue down there. The touring artists come through. I can't remember it, but yeah, nonetheless, being off the side like in Maryland is weird. That's definitely weird.
It's all that's the other thing too. Is just like, just bring it back home, man. Bring it back to DC. Like it's just the metro stop is there, man. Like let's just make it happen.
And I think they're thinking about the fans too, man. Like DC's just such a small market. More of y'all fans are probably in Maryland and VA now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But big shout out to everybody in chat. Appreciate you guys rocking with us.
Absolutely. Sure. Let's get to this Eagles game, man. Then we'll get y'all up out of here. I'd say in about a good total of an hour here. The Eagles travel down 95 to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Commanders are now sitting at the number 7 spot with a 71% chance to make the playoffs. Philadelphia Eagles, man, this was a big game here. The Beard picked the Philadelphia Eagles to win this one. He did get that right. I picked the Ravens. I don't know. I went with my heart, I think, on this one. My mind.
For sure. Because I said I want to pick the Ravens so bad, but
looked at this as maybe a game I could get up on you on too, but that was not the case. The Eagles ended up winning 24-19. The Ravens were favored at home by 3 points. The Ravens had won the last 2 matchups. It's just Lamar Jackson's second loss versus the NFC in his entire career. And both those losses came to the NFC East. One of them to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. And now his second loss came to the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. The Eagles are now on an 8-game winning streak. Back-to-back wins on the road against 2 pretty decent opponents in the Los Angeles Rams and the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles are 10-2 and sitting in second place in the NFC right now. They've started 9-2 or better in 3 straight seasons. Nick Sirianni, man, like I give the flowers when they're due. first Eagles coach with winning seasons in all of his first 4 seasons. He's joining some company in the NFL. There have not been a lot of guys to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4 other guys have done this. Sean Payton, Tony Dungy, Bill Belichick, and Mike Shanahan. Nick Sirianni almost seems like the name that does not belong with those guys. I'm going to keep it real with you.
Company.
That's some damn good company. The Eagles have won over 70% of their road games since 2021. They're only trailing the Chiefs in that department right now. The Eagles came in with the number 1 defense. The Ravens came in with the number 1 offense. And this game also featured the 2 top rushing teams in the NFL. The Ravens are actually the first team in the Super Bowl era with at least 3,000 yards passing and 2,000 yards rushing through a team's first 12 games of the season. And this game, I thought that there were some moments for the Baltimore Ravens to really stick in this game. It started off a little interesting. The Ravens had the lead 9-0 early in the second quarter. Then Jalen Hurts hit Dallas Goedert for a short touchdown to cut that lead. The Eagles added another touchdown on a tush-push play. And I always like to see how the Philadelphia Eagles lead up to the tush-push because people think like, I don't know, Saquon Barkley's just running the ball down to the 1-yard line every time, which does happen a lot as well. But on this particular red zone attempt, Jalen Hurts got them down there with a run to put them down on the 1-yard line. They run the tush-push. He ends up fumbling the snap, but somehow bobbled it, caught it, and then reached the ball over the goal line to get the touchdown. The Eagles ended up taking the lead 14-9 at that point. Justin Tucker got a field goal right before the half. It was 14-12, and this was the key moment of the entire game for me. 1:28 left in the third quarter. It was 14-12 in favor of the Eagles. 3rd and 7. Lamar puts a perfect 35-yard dot on, of all people, Nelson Aguilar. And you know good and goddamn well what happened. He dropped the ball, okay? He dropped the ball.
We got to have the clip of the guy.
We really do.
Right here.
We really do.
I was out there catching babies like.
Yeah, we really do. And Nelson Aguilar has cleaned up the drops for the most part, but he's had 2 major drops this season. Ravens end up having to settle for a field goal, but it was a 53-yard field goal, and Justin Tucker missed the kick. He's starting to look like he's getting a little bit old. And then a couple of drives later, Saquon Barkley ends up scoring on the big touchdown run. It was like about a 25-yard touchdown run. Put the Eagles up 21-12 with 7:56 left in the fourth quarter. To me, the game is pretty much over at that point. The Ravens are chasing that 2-score lead for the rest of the game. And Saquon Barkley was absolutely the difference maker in this game. Both running backs started off pretty slow. And we talked about this about the Philadelphia Eagles for the past couple of weeks, that they just happen to just start games off very slow. Scored their first quarter touchdown just a couple of weeks ago. Both running backs combined for just 80 yards at the half in this game. But Saquon with the big 28-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter ended the day with 107 yards, 1 touchdown on 23 attempts. And for anybody like tracking the whole MVP type of situation here, Saquon would be the first non-quarterback to win MVP since Adrian Peterson in 2012. And on the season, I mean, I'm not even jealous at this point. I'm almost happy for Saquon Barkley. He's got a yard less than 1,500 on the ground this year, 11 rushing touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry, 5 games with multiple touchdowns. He leads the NFL in attempts. He's a workhorse. He's a true running back one, every down type of running back. And it was good to see him really take over this game. I thought he was the difference maker. Lamar Jackson had a pretty solid game. 237 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. The Ravens outrushed the Eagles, 166-140. A lot of that had to do with Lamar. And the last play, the last run that Lamar Jackson had in this game, I don't know if you got a chance to see that last run, man. It's like 40 yards he ran the ball.
Yards, yeah.
Dude, the juke, he's got a guy trailing him, about to straight up kill him, and he just sends this guy diving. Like, all air, just straight up all air, man. Lamar Jackson, I heard a take on, I can't remember where this take was, but it was on WFAN. It was Sal Licata. And he said, I think that Lamar Jackson is one of the best football players that I've ever seen play the game. And they posted the clip, and like a lot of people were giving pushback, like, this guy's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know football. I guess you didn't see Dan Marino. You getting comments like that, right? I think he has a bit of a point here. Like, I don't know if I would 100% agree with the take, right? But when it comes from a standpoint of like, okay, we got a scheme to stop that guy, I'd be hard-pressed to find teams that throughout the history of the game have had more trouble than stopping a guy like Lamar Jackson. Like, teams are literally like breaking their back trying to figure out how they're going to stop this guy from not only throwing the ball now because he's a very effective passer, but also as a rusher on the ground. Lamar Jackson, he was under pressure this entire game, and he was still the most effective player on the Baltimore Ravens offense. these statistics are absolutely fucking ridiculous, Beard. He was pressured 35 times.
Jesus.
35 total pressures from Lamar Jackson on Lamar Jackson.
Daniels was pressured? He was
9, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was 9, maybe 12, something like that. He was sacked 4 times in this game. They had 3 quarterback hits. He was hurried on 28 dropbacks. 17 of the Philadelphia Eagles pressures came from the interior. I thought the numbers were a mistake, man. Jalen Carter had 8. Milton Williams had 9. Josh Sweat had 7. Like, all of these pressures coming from the interior of that defense. The Eagles' defense, and you talked about this, about them being, when we were talking backstage about this, being the number 1 defense, like maybe that defense is better than the offense is. And I think that is the case now. The Eagles had held teams to under 300 total yards in 7 straight games. Longest streak since 2008. The Ravens come out here and they put up 372 yards total in a game where Lamar Jackson was pressured 35 times. I think that we're just not talking about the Philadelphia Eagles defense enough. They started off the year like absolute dog crap, right? Like, they were terrible the first couple of games. Dealing with some injuries offensively, obviously. Darius Slay was injured as well, but that kind of allowed them to find out what they had with these young guys. And Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, like, they're finding out who they really have on their roster. And red zone-wise, the Ravens have scored on 78.7% of their red zone trips on the season. To hold them to 2 for 5, I mean,
that's
just
a game changer right there.
It's a game changer right there. It's really what won them the game, outside of Saquon Barkley. But when you have a defense like the Philadelphia Eagles have, and you have an absolute dominant rushing attack like they have, if they can continue to play like this on all cylinders, this is a Super Bowl contender right here.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And it's not even just like, once again, like a box score, right? You say, Baltimore was 2 of 5 in the red zone. Do you know how hard it is? Their percentage is that high for a reason. When you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews, not to mention Zay Flowers, who you could do a jet sweep or slant, those sort of plays.
Isaiah Likely.
Like, that's got to be the cheat code of all cheat codes outside of Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's teams that want to be like that. Washington Commanders, with Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson and Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz. Like, that's the formula for a successful red zone team. So, and the Cooper DeJean thing is just absolutely, like, that is so critical. And I'm glad. Big shout out Vintage Sport Flips in the chat, Philadelphia Eagles fan. They have not lost since Cooper DeJean came off from the injury and into the lineup. Haven't lost since then. Which
was after A.J. Brown got back.
Yeah. So, did you see his tackle on
I did.
Derrick Henry?
I thought people were kind of overhyping that.
I mean, yeah, but it's an overhypable
It's play. A hit that when you play Pee-wee ball, you dream of. You're like, oh, dude caught the ball. He's not looking.
Well,
Bam!
Quan Martin from Commanders had one of those. I thought they were going to give him a penalty. He just said, he
he's
suplexed the Bama.
This was no Tay Crowder hit on Derrick Henry for my Giants fans that remember that one.
That's a good pull right there.
That was a jump through the hole. Hey, I see you, cuz. That was one of them joints.
And listen, if you want to beat this Philadelphia Eagles team, you got to do it from the beginning. I think that's the
which
formula.
The Ravens had that formula. I mean, I know they weren't scoring touchdowns.
It was
but they
9-0.
were up 9-0, right? Like,
what did they do? Listen, I look at this sort of, I do like to do deep dives into the play-by-plays, right? So remember I gave you the stat about after the drive for the Giants, right? After that long drive, huh? So they go up 9-0. Which is, same thing with Washington. Washington was up, but they were scoring field goals against Philadelphia. After they got that 9-0 lead, they had 32 yards of total offense and 3 points.
Total or in the first half?
In the first half.
In the first half. Well, the 9-0 lead was right at the end of the first quarter going into the second quarter. So we're looking at a whole quarter of pretty much no productivity. Yeah,
and so, like, that's why it's so important to capitalize early on. Justin Tucker, I mean, this is like, you hate to see it. This is like, Shaq playing for the Celtics, it feels like.
I can't go that far just yet. He has been missing a lot of kicks, but I'm not going Shaq with the Celtics.
Listen, the same total points, combined points, that the Ravens have lost all their games by this season is the same amount of total points in Justin Tucker missed field goals this year.
I would be curious to see where he's kicking from because they have a lot of confidence in him. They
also,
kicked a 53-yarder in this game, no problem. Like, yeah, man, go ahead, go make that.
And
he missed it.
He missed the extra point, and he missed 2 field goals in this game.
I can't go as far as the Shaq vibes. I can't go that
feel
far.
you. That's why I said we're almost there. But
I can't go there.
Do you have to consider it, right? Like if you have to consider like moving on it at some point. Like I know he's Justin Tucker. He's a Hall of Fame kicker. He is the face of your franchise. But bruh, he's
not the face of the franchise.
Well, before Lamar. I mean,
he was never the face of the franchise.
Ain't
nobody walking around Baltimore with no Justin Tucker jerseys on, dog. But I know where you're going with this.
What I'm saying.
I understand
you know what I'm saying.
I think you have to assess it and evaluate it for longer than just what has been happening throughout this season. I think it's a concern. He's missing a lot of field goals. Do you just move on right away? I don't think so. Do you bring in some competition maybe though? Yeah, I think that's something you should consider. But maybe he's just in a funk at the same time. You don't just forget how to do something. And with Justin Tucker, it doesn't seem to be like a physical thing. It's not like this dude's coming up short on 51-yard field goals, right? He's kicking them. They're just not going in. So I don't know how long that leash has to be, but we have seen this happen with guys like who's due with the Colts, Vanderjet. He was the best kicker in the league for like 2 years, and then all of a sudden the dude couldn't make a 25-yard field goal out of nowhere. All right, we got to move on. But I do think that I want to know what the kicking percentage is this year. Like, how many has he missed? Like 10?
It's been bad across the league. I'm not going to.
Yeah, the league has been sketchy as far as kicks go this year. That is true.
Big
but that's no excuse. That's no excuse for Tucker.
No, it's not. He's supposed to be the guy. He's supposed to be the best kicker in football.
Yeah, you got to make those.
You know what I'm saying? Big shout out to Ben though, because this is a guy that was on my notes here. Zach Bond. One of the most underrated free agents. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent signing because he was in, I believe, New Orleans last year. He has been an absolute machine for them. I want to say he led them in tackles in this game. He had a half
first
sack.
game without Brandon Graham too. Out for the year now. Might be a wrap for him as far as his career. He did say he was going to retire at the beginning of this season too.
Yeah, and I mean he's had interceptions and fumble recoveries, all types of stuff this year for the Eagles. He's been fantastic. Yeah. I mean we pretty much touched on most of the things here. I did want to, obviously Baltimore had more yards, more first downs, time of possession. They damn near had 30 more plays than the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just those missed opportunities early in the game, the missed field goals, the extra point, the 2 for 5 in the red zone, the third downs, the 3 sacks were big sacks. We talked about this earlier. 31 yards lost on those 3 sacks that Philadelphia had in this game. So those are a bit critical. But I mean, we obviously have to talk a little bit about our guy. It's like you go to the corner here in DC, you go to the carry out, and you order, a Szechuan beef and Barkley.
That dude was.
I'll take a Szechuan beef and Barkley to go.
I thought you were going to talk about somebody we didn't talk about yet. That's why you threw me for a loop there.
No, good old Szechuan Barkley, 4.7 yards per carry. I mean, when it came down to it and needed a big play, Szechuan went 29 yards?
28 yards, yo.
28 yards. I mean, listen, the guy is. There is not a team in this league that is like you would be lying to yourselves. I knew it. You knew it. Saquon Barkley was going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles and have the best year of his life. I don't think if you knew and you watched it.
I didn't know for 100% sure. I thought he was going to have a good season, but I didn't know that he would be better than he was his rookie year. That part I didn't know. I knew Saquon was one of the elite running backs. But, man, like, to be the best in the league right now and have an MVP conversation happening around his name, I wouldn't have ruled it out, but I wouldn't have put no money down on it.
I mean, listen, I went ham. You can always tell the Beard's level of faith in players based upon how I go after these guys in fantasy drafts, right? Because like I believe in somebody, I believe in a system, I believe in the opportunity. I really go after guys because that's how I base my fantasy profession on, right? And Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry were 2 guys that I absolutely dove headfirst in. And
Henry was a guy that seemed more obvious for me because you have that threat at running with the quarterback. So I'm like, man, now they got Derrick Henry to kind of split that up a little bit. I thought that was definitely going to be a nice recipe for success. I thought Saquon during fantasy drafts was going a little bit early.
And Derrick Henry was going late. I mean, I saw drafts where Derrick Henry was going in the 3rd, 4th round.
It's crazy,
bro.
man. It's crazy, man.
And then you see guys like Bucky Irving. You know, I had Bucky Irving on my team from the day I drafted him and never cut him. Left him.
Yeah, which was tough. He was off to a slow start.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we did good in parlay on some of those touchdown calls.
Oh, most definitely. But, I missed out on you got the 2 from the running back that I thought was crazy, which was B-Rob and who was the other one? Bucky Irving. And then I said Saquon and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry didn't get in the end zone in this game.
Crazy.
I was extremely surprised on that. Hurts was only pressured 9 times in this game, and he only threw the ball 19 times. I mean, they relied on the run heavy in this game, and they maximized their opportunities by doing that. 11 of 19 for 188. He had 9 rushes himself. They kept him in check, only 29 yards on the ground. The 26 total touchdowns to 5 interceptions right now for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's playing that kind of sneaky football where you're just like, you know, you can't see it in the box score like that. But I also wanted to give some props to the offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles as well, man. Jeff Stoutland, man, he's got them playing great football. No pressures on the left side of this offensive line. Jordan Mailata just holding it down. Lane Johnson said that Roquan Smith was at the line of scrimmage calling out their plays. They knew that they were going to be running certain plays right at them. And he'd be like, here comes the run to the right. Lane Johnson said he had never seen anything like that from any other player. He said the only other guy he ever saw something like that from was Luke Kuechly. That when they would go to the line, he knew their plays from studying their tape so much. So Eagles coaching staff, y'all got to go to the drawing board here and, you know, put in some bluff calls, do some pre-snap motion, something where they're not going to be able to call out your plays. And the Ravens defense, they came into this game. I thought this was a really interesting stat too. They've had at least 2 sacks in 15 straight games, make it 16. They got to Jalen Hurts twice in this game. But the Eagles definitely looking like the team that was more ready for this matchup right now. You coming in on 7 straight wins. You kind of got the, you know, like a boxer would. We gave you the tune-up fights against the inferior competition. Then you came out. We kind of dialed you up, gave you some better fighters here the past couple of weeks, and you were prepared for this Ravens game where the Ravens offense kind of, they got to figure it out with the passing attack. I love how they used Mark Andrews in this game, but Zay Flowers, besides the big play, just really not a factor in this game. I think he only had like 4, maybe 3 receptions in this game or something like that. And Bateman, you got to find a way to get that passing attack going a little better.
And Bateman, who's been having a sneaky good year, gets hurt in this game, right? Mm-hmm. And you would think, okay, here comes the Deontay Johnson breakout game. Didn't play 1 snap.
Nope, not at all.
Dude has played. I think he's had 3. He's played I think he's had 3 catches maybe since they traded for him.
Yeah, and they're not using him at all. And I heard that there was a rumor about him wanting to be traded or released.
Did you the press conference was awkward? Did you see the presser?
I didn't see the press conference.
They asked Coach Harbaugh about, you know, Deontay Johnson, like what's up with Deontay Johnson? And like he gave the like most awkward like white guy like subliminal like just I don't know how to answer this question without like not answering this question but answering this question.
What did he say?
He was basically like he said, I can't really talk about it right now. I can't go into the details.
See that. No, I like that. I like that, bro.
It's not that I don't like it.
Because like Brian Dable, right? Brian Dable's whole thing the last couple of weeks has been, I understand the question, but we can't talk about it. It's pretty much what he's been saying. I did see a clip of that presser, and I like that. He was pretty much just like, yeah, it's awkward. I can't talk about it.
Yeah, and then he like doubled down on it after the day after, and it's just like, he's like, when the time is right, we'll let you know what's going on. I'm just like I'm on the edge of my seat now.
I like it. Be honest. Don't give me the BS PC answer. Oh, you know, we're trying to get him involved and get him acclimated to the offense. I don't want to hear all that bullshit. Tell me, look, it's something I can't tell you. All right.
So I don't know what it is. Like they gave up a 5th rounder for him, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like if you're not going to utilize him at all, and they don't have the greatest depth over there in Baltimore wide receiver either. So you would think that, you know, in a game where, you know, homie goes down with the injury, he would be, hey, we got you for this reason. Here you go. But
yeah, like they were able to kind of mask it for a couple of weeks, but then when Bateman goes down and Tylan Wallace is out there playing more snaps than Deontay Johnson.
Hey, don't sleep on Wallace.
Oh,
Though.
I'm a big Ty Wall guy. I'm a big Ty Wall guy.
I wouldn't start him on my fantasy team or nothing like that. Man. He's one of them guys, man. He's one of them role players, man. He's like the glue. He's in the middle of everything.
Yeah, so it's an interesting game. And listen, the Baltimore Ravens, they're now 8-5.
8-5, yep. So let me ask you this. If you had to pick one of these two teams to win the Super Bowl, what team do you think? You see how I did the Family Guy? What team do you think would actually have the better chance of winning a Super Bowl right now? The Baltimore Ravens, or would it be the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East? And not just to get there, to win it.
I would say the Eagles. Because I think it's tougher to get to the Super Bowl, which you would have to get to in order to win it, in the AFC than it is the NFC. So for that reason, I would say that the Eagles.
Say the Eagles just got to get there. But then you're gonna run into that kryptonite, Patrick Mahomes and them Kansas City Chiefs.
Man, bro, listen.
I'm going to go Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to say that this loss is actually beneficial for them. No moral victories on Authentic and the Beard, but I'm giving the Baltimore Ravens a moral victory here, okay? I think that taking this loss here against a good team, Lamar Jackson said, man, I don't even want to take the bye week. I want to get out there and play. And I think coming off the bye, they got to play the New York Giants. Yeah, they're going to beat our ass. It's going to be bad.
The Eagles they only have the Steelers left, right? Like that's their only team that they have left on their schedule and the Commanders, I guess.
Yeah. So
there's a good chance that the Eagles don't lose another game.
Absolutely. That would be a crazy way to end the season, man. What would that be? They're 8 straight now, and they have 5 games left. You talk a 13-game winning streak going into the playoffs?
You want to ask me who's going to win the NFC East?
We know who's going to win the NFC East. Who's going to win the NFC East, Beard?
Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought you were going to give me a play action here. Commanders.
No, they would need a epic collapse from the Eagles in order to win the division. I would love it.
Back. Well, I mean, you play them once, right?
Yeah, you play them once. So if you beat them, you get that game back, and then
you just need them to lose one more game, and you guys would have to win out.
Yeah,
2 more with the tie. I don't know what the divisional records are. Y'all
because
swept
we lost
the New York
Dallas
Giants.
Game, which
lost to Dallas. Y'all play Dallas one more time.
Yeah.
So if you did win out, you would have 1 division loss, and then the Eagles y'all lost to as well. So that'll be 2 division losses. The Eagles have not lost in the division yet, have they? Yeah, you cooked. Yeah, you cooked. Shout out to the Eagles, man. Shout out to the Eagles. You were right about the Commanders this year, though. I'll give you that. You were right about the Commanders. Y'all are headed to the playoffs is what it looks like right now. I'm going to give you one of those so I don't jinx you. You feel me?
I mean, listen, the other teams are falling apart around us. Bro,
Yeah.
The NFC South and the NFC West are a complete disaster.
Yeah, and the Bucs is interesting in the South. Just lost they should not have been a 4-6 team a couple of weeks ago. They just seem like a better team than that. And they, losing close games, the close game to the San Francisco 49ers, just not a game that they should have lost, to be honest. But now they got Mike Evans back. I think the Bucs will win that division, but Atlanta is who you got to watch out for. Atlanta. You got to watch out for San Francisco, even though, lost a tough one this past week.
They're cooked. San Francisco's
You think they're cooked?
They're cooked.
Losing the 2 running backs is going to hurt
The
them.
only thing that I think, if they got into the playoffs, though, I think that they're a tricky team in the playoffs. But
that's what we're talking about when we're saying cooked. We're not talking about
in
the playoffs.
They might win that division with a losing record.
Nah, the Cardinals is right there, right?
They're all 500 or below in that division right now.
Yeah, the 49ers are below
5-7.
They're below 500 now. Let's see. So let's go to NFC.
The Cardinals.
Yeah, 49ers are at the bottom of the division.
5-7.
The Seahawks are actually at the top of the division with the winning record now with that dub they just got. They're at 7-5. So you're gonna have to really watch out for Seattle or the Cardinals, whichever team don't win the division.
And we have the win over the Cardinals, which helps.
Rams are 6-6 right now.
So Rams and Cardinals are both 6-6. Seahawks are 7-5.
49ers 5-7.
Yeah, and then the South is what? Eagles at 6-6.
Or the East? Or are you talking about, you said Eagles?
The Falcons.
The South. Yeah, 6-6 with the Bucks and the Falcons. And
They're
the Saints are
4-6.
4-8, and the Panthers are 3-9. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those two teams. We'll have to take a look at their schedules when we go down the stretch here.
We play the Falcons. We lost to Tampa Bay, but we play the Falcons. So our hope would be that Tampa Bay wins the division and we beat the Falcons. That gives us a leg up there. And then we have the leg up on Arizona.
Yeah, but you thinking like the last week. There's a lot of football left, bro. You know what I mean? There's a lot of football left. And a matchup against them. Like there's a lot of football left.
Games left.
They're 2 games back. That's how you got to look at it. They're 2 games behind you. Both those teams.
We have 4 games left.
Yeah, the bye in 4 games, and then these teams are going to have 5 games left.
Yeah. So we got the Saints, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Falcons, right? I think that's what our schedule is. Not in that order, but those are the teams left.
And then the bye coming up this week. So it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch here. I think the NFC North might send 3 teams. The Bears, man. The Bears were at 500 when they played y'all, and they have not won a game since. They're 4-8 now.
They are a disaster.
I wouldn't call them a disaster. It's just,
not the team.
The rebuild is just not going the way that you would hope with the weapons that they had around Caleb Williams. You would think they would be a little bit better, but you got to be patient. They're a ball club I'd be patient with. New York Giants, not so much. But good vibes today, man. We'll be back here on Thursday for the preview show. The Thursday night football game this week's a good one. The Lions and the Packers should be a good one.
That's a big game. That is a big game.
Mm-hmm. So definitely pull up. We got a couple of matchups here. The Commanders are going to be on a bye this week. The Giants are taking on. The Giants have a home game. I forget who it is. Forget who the Giants got this week, and the Cowboys. But we'll be here on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, breaking down all those games. Salute to everybody that pulled up today, rocked out with us, man. The Beard, you got any last words for the family lamb out here one time?
Let me ask you a quick question before we leave.
Mm-hmm.
What is the time before you can't do the leftover Thanksgiving anymore? Today's like the last day.
Yeah, I would have said yesterday was the last day. Like we had some macaroni and cheese, some baked mac, and my girl was like, "Yeah, don't eat that after yesterday."
I had some stuffing and turkey on a sandwich today. It was pretty good. So
tasted, yeah. Now you gotta just see if it digests the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you'd be all right, man.
That's a big key. But yeah,
you've ate worse.
I've eaten McChicken sandwiches out the backseat of my car the next day. So shout out to those days.
No McDonald's shade over here, okay?
Well, I mean, listen, I love the 2 for $3 as much as the next guy, but the day after situation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, big shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate all the love and all the support as always. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at TimWalkOnWater2 and at Authentic. Keep up to date with all of the happenings around the Authentic and the Beard community. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all I got. Good stuff, man. All right, man. Y'all know how we end every show, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. And that's a wrap, y'all. The best division in football with the worst team in the entire NFL sitting at the bottom of it. Y'all know what it is. Our New York Giants, man. We still here to represent, man. Appreciate all y'all pulling up, rocking out with us. Do not forget to pull up on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if this is your first time checking out the show, hit that subscribe button, man. Do us a favor. Follow the movement. Join the gang. Join the family. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of y'all Tuesday evening. I know I will. Beard, good show, man. We holla at y'all. Peace.
Okay. Spike, don't care.